Welcome to SouthernSense Talk on Rumble. You are going to love Annie the Radio Chickadee Ubelis and her co-host, C.S. Bennett. You'll find them live here on Fridays from 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Date Time. Check out their website at SouthernSense, as in commonsense.net. It's that easy, SouthernSense.net. So sit back and relax. They're informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey.
Okay, as usual, I'm starting off the show really bad. Okay, welcome back to another adventure here on Southern Sense. It looks like everything that can go wrong with me today is going wrong, so I apologize for that. Anyway, I'm waiting for my co-host Hannah to join me. Hannah Davis of the Federation for American Immigration Reform usually is with me bright and early, but she's missing in action at the moment, so hopefully she'll join us soon. Anyway, we got ourselves a great show, and I'm not organized as you can tell because it's just another Friday, and what else can go wrong? I've got two great guests. John Leake, he co-authored the book with Dr. Peter McCullough. You remember, he was the doctor that testified before Congress about COVID when it first came out. He co-wrote a book with Dr. Peter called The Courage to Face COVID-19. His new book out is Mind Viruses and America's Irrational Obsession. That's going to be a very interesting book. I haven't been able to go through the whole book completely, but a lot of what he writes about in there, a perfect example is Dr. Fauci. If anyone saw him testifying, it is testifying before Senator Paul. Matter of fact, I'm sorry. If you're looking behind me, this little kitty cat happens to be named Puppy. She's looking for a little attention, I guess, and to be my co-host today, aren't you? Anyway, following John Leake, we have returning from the Epoch Times, Ryan Morgan. And we're going to talk a lot about what's going on in Iran and the Houthis, as well as possibly sanctioning Russia and so on and so forth, and so much more. Okay, Hannah said she had a bit of a brain fart, so she's going to be a little late. So what else is new? Like I said, it's a Friday, it's Southern Sense, and the show never starts off normal. Okay, so I know we'll be seeing her in a short bit. Anyway, well, I just have Puppy as my co-host. Puppy, say hi. Okay. Oh man, I don't know if anyone was watching the testimony from Fauci. I don't know if you had the reaction I had. I just wanted to reach through the TV and slap him and say, answer a damn question. But there are some legal ramifications of him pleading the fifth. And I think he just shot himself in the foot, actually. So we're going to be talking a lot about that. It seems that Biden gave him the blanket immunity, or did he? Because it was done by RoboPen. So whether or not it's actually valid, that leads to a legal question, which may end up leading to the Supreme Court deciding on that. But once he took the pardon, anything he says afterwards, he can't plead the fifth if he's talking about the crimes he was pardoned for. They can't prosecute him because he's already been pardoned for those crimes. However, as soon as he pleads the fifth, he's now becomes in contempt of the Senate committee hearing in Congress. It also means that anything he admits to now under oath that had to deal with it, he can be prosecuted. He cannot be prosecuted federally, but he can be prosecuted by the states. And I'm sure there's 50 attorney generals out there in the United States that would love to prosecute them for the innocents that died because of the COVID vaccine and other issues. What about how many veterans and elderly people died because of COVID, because they stuck the COVID patients into nursing homes and veteran facilities? How many of our men and women that served our country faithfully and deserved to be treated with respect were not because of Dr. Fauci? How many schools were closed because Fauci picked up the phone and said, you're closing your schools. You have no choice. There's a lot of things that are wrong with what he did, and he now looks like we can get to the bottom of it and maybe send Fauci on a nice long prison sentence in that orange jumpsuit. So we're going to be seeing about all that's going on there. Um, since I don't have Hannah with me right at the moment, I'm going to jump a little bit ahead and I'm going to do our dedication to the fallen hero. And today's dedication is going to go out to Corporal Barry James Foust of the Arlington County Police Department in Virginia. His end of watch was Friday, May 22nd of this year. And just to let you know a little bit of this, he was one of the first ones that responded to the Pentagon on the morning of September 11th of 2001 when the terrorists captured flight American Airlines 77 and struck the Pentagon. He was at the intersection of Walter Reed Drive and Columbia Pike. He worked that day to clear the roadway for 4 other first responders, and then throughout the week, he returned to the Pentagon crash site to help collect evidence and to also help recover the fallen. So today's dedication is going out to Corporal Barry James Foust. Okay, and looks like we're gonna. There we go. I apologize. It looks like Hannah's with me now, and you can't hear me.
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know what happened with the video. I apologize. I uploaded it up onto the program, and it's just showing a gray screen. So I uploaded the video onto my computer to play it off the computer, and I don't know what else is going on.
And I apologize. I did the time conversion wrong. It's 2:30 Eastern Standard Time, but I'm an hour behind. So it
Yes,
caught
you
up to
are.
me. Yep.
Day late, dollar short.
I know. I know. I'm usually pretty good about that, so I apologize. But
All
I'm
right,
here now.
what I will do is up onto YouTube and X and others, I will upload that video for the dedication and have just a separate entry for that. So anyone that's looking for the dedication, I apologize. It's some sort of a technical glitch. I mean, it started the moment I woke up this morning. So anything that can go wrong today
We're both
is
running
going wrong.
one cylinder, I think. So,
Oh
but we're
man.
here. So,
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, I know what it is because today my home landline should have been turned on.
you have a
And
landline.
I still have a landline for the last 26 years, the same phone number.
There you go.
But what happened was when I changed services, I went from one company to a different one and I bundled everything, saving a couple $100.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the old company got ticked off and they canceled my number. They completely disconnected it instead of porting it over. And that happened back on May 4th. And I didn't know it because the number was finally shut off
Hmm.
on July 9th. And that's when everything went crazy. Meanwhile, they claimed they disconnected it on May 4th and it was still operable all the way up to July 9th.
Hmm.
And then they said, no,
Someone's lying.
you can't get it back, can't get it back. And I said, all right, I'm not going to get mad. I'm going to get even. So under the Department of Justice is the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Hmm.
So you must have access to something as simple as a telephone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just contacted the Department of Justice and filed a complaint underneath the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Okay.
All right. I would say my disability retirement from the police department is enough of a, evidence.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
proof.
That's proof. And then I said, oh, wait a minute. A day or two later, I said, I'm not. I am not. And I said, well, they haven't gotten back to me. They haven't. And the DOJ acknowledged the complaint. So they got it.
Yeah. They
So
respond
I
to you quicker than they respond to me for the FOIA request. That's for sure.
said, so I said, all right, I'm taking this a step forward. I went to the FCC.
Oh,
And one of the major complaints is the portability of your phone number. You own that number.
yeah, it's you.
You registered under a different carrier, but they are legally responsible for porting that number over to whatever new device or location that you are at.
You think it'll work? Think you'll get your number back?
And the next day, I had the company on the phone. And they said, well, we have to do a couple of things. And yes, the number has been completely disconnected because of the city code. It went back to the original carrier that issued that number. So they had to contact the original carrier to get the number sent to them, to get the number sent to the new company. And today it should have been working, and I've got a deadline.
No message.
Oh, there's no message. I just didn't want that. I wanted to hear if I had a dial tone.
I hope you get it.
No
I
dial tone.
remember my landline from when I was in elementary school, and I think that's, I mean, gosh, what, 25 years ago? So,
Well, I'm a little bit more dated than that.
yeah, your number alone was over 26 years old, right?
How about over 50?
Wow.
That was my parents' phone number, I should say.
Okay. Yeah.
I got married at 20, so.
The Americans with Disabilities Act is a good act. You know, my father has non-lifestyle diabetes, and he was an in-state trucker. And when they found out that he needed to use some forms of insulin, he doesn't have a pump, but he takes the shots. They were like, we can't fire you, but you also can't drive a truck if you're using an insulin. And so they legally had to find him a different position, and they did. And so it's a good act to have, because otherwise he would have just been fired, you know, for something totally out of his control. So I'm happy that it helped my father, and I'm happy you got your number back.
Got the number back. I just got to get it working now.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, well. But we've got, I was telling the audience earlier, we got two great guests. John Leake, he's the author of a new book, The Mind Viruses, America's irrational obsession. And this is a perfect thing to go into him with COVID and Fauci's testimony that he gave just the other day,
Yeah.
because he also co-wrote a book. He was the primary author of the book he wrote with Dr. Peter McCullough, which you remember he also testified.
Yeah.
And that was called The Courage to Face COVID-19. And I mean, it's absolutely perfect. And then we have our friend Ryan Morgan, who's going to be coming over. Remember
Sharp
from the
guy.
Epoch Times?
Mm-hmm.
Young kid. I don't think he shaves yet.
No, he's sharp though. He's sharp.
Yes, he is. He is. So he's going to be talking to us about a number of other different projects. But you know, it's funny. I was doing my notes last night. I like to do them the night before, not the same day. But my problem was yesterday I ended up going to the spine specialist, and she gave me 9 injections on my back.
Oh, that sounds
9.
fun.
Yeah, on the thoracic spine. So when I got home, I was not in the mood.
I don't blame you.
So I rushed through everything this morning. And my husband last night was watching the news, and he goes, "What's TPS?" And I got my head buried in whatever I was reading. And I don't know. I wasn't looking at the TV. I don't know. And then you sent me the article. I'm going, "Oh, you friggin' idiot. You know what TPS is."
It kind of cracks me up.
Temporary.
It kind of cracks me up that, you know, people who aren't in the immigration sphere know what TPS is, because just 10 years ago, I mean, this is a very niche aspect of immigration policy that now the layman even understands. So it's funny to see it going across the news, you know?
Yeah, especially when, you know, you're brain dead. And you go,
Oh, yeah,
"Duh."
yeah. Oh, well, that sucks too, when you know something, but you push it off and then you realize later you could have answered them appropriately. Yeah, especially when it's your spouse.
So you weren't the only one having a brain fart.
Oh, no.
And I told the audience that that's what you texted me. That you said you had a brain fart.
I did. I had a brain fart, and that was a big one. I'm usually good at time conversion, but I got a D in math, so time can be a little tricky.
Yeah, you're not on the East Coast.
Yes, I'm not.
Well, this temporary protection status that we had for the Haitians, I was really flipped out that how many actually abused the program that were not Haitian.
Oh, yeah, yeah. There's fraud.
580 some odd, a little over 500,000 are actually Haitian, but there's 1.8 million that came in under the Haitian temporary protection. Huh? What?
Yeah, I mean, our immigration system is riddled with fraud, and I think that's kind of what we get when we're so open doors policy. I mean, even when we run a very tight ship like we are under the current administration, we still have a very generous immigration stratosphere, I guess you could say. We have so many pipelines for people to come here legally. Some administrations let you come here illegally. So we're very generous. But yeah, no, what's going on right now is we've got fraud in almost every visa pipeline, and it also affects temporary protected status, commonly known as TPS. But it's a good thing. What we're seeing right now, though, is we're cracking down on at least one aspect of TPS, and that's the Haitian pathway. We have over 300,000 Haitians in the United States currently on TPS, and their status has been revoked. So they've got to go, or they're going to get deported.
It's amazing, because it also brings to mind how many are abusing the system by going to outlying islands that are territories, and using the territory to come into the United States. And
yeah, it's smart.
They're finally catching up on that. Saying, "I'm sorry, no more. If you're going to come into the United States, you've got to come into an official port of entry, and not come through the back door of a territory."
Yeah,
you're not the only one bringing parts today.
And getting some form of, essentially, these pathways, we're so generous with them, and then they become a form of backdoor amnesty, essentially, because someone with TPS can stay here for a long time, and they can eventually adjust their status enough times where they become a lawful permanent resident, where they receive a green card, they're on that status for a long time, and then they become a citizen. And so there's always a pathway to citizenship, and we've got to crack down. And yeah, there's fraud in the TPS system. The fact that TPS means temporary protected status, yet, we've got people here for decades under what was supposed to be temporary, is fraud in and of itself. It's a slap in the face to our generosity. And so it's good that we're cracking down. The lower court's decision was reversed by the Supreme Court. They, voted in favor of the Trump administration. And it's really, I mean, it's just in favor of the American citizen. It's in favor of common sense reform. Temporary means temporary, so we can't have people here for decades. It'll be interesting to see if these people willingly leave the nation, though. I mean, these people have been here a long time. They have probably got businesses of their own. They've got jobs. They've got families. They've got anchor babies. These kids are in school. These people work, and for all intents and purposes, they are functioning members of our society. But unfortunately for them, they're here and their status was revoked. And so hopefully they will leave peacefully and quietly. The Trump administration is paying people thousands of dollars to leave. We make it easy to leave. And so hopefully they do the right thing. If not, we're going to waste a lot of resources playing the dangerous game of catch up and roundup. And there's no need for that.
No, there is none. As a matter of fact, Tom Holman posted a rant he recently did, because wherever he goes now, he has to have protection. And that's how bad it's gotten. And he's upset because these men and women that are working for ICE, working for him, are putting their lives on the line just to protect his. And that ticks him off. And I don't blame him.
Yeah.
A cop being guarded by other cops. It doesn't sit well with us. You figure that you can take care of yourself. You don't need people around you.
I can imagine the police chief in New York City probably felt the same way. That's a high profile position. They probably have people targeting them, and then they've got to have their beat cops defend them, and that probably rubs them wrong too.
Well, some I'd say yes, others I'd say absolutely not. Because we had some that never served a day on the beat. So it doesn't mean that you're hiring a cop to watch over the cops.
How do you become a police chief and never walk the beat?
Some of them have. Not like my friend Ray Kelly, who is my ex-husband's colonel in the Marine Corps. He served, I think it was something like 28 years as a beat cop, not just a beat cop, but working up through the ranks.
Yeah.
And he was a cop's cop. Honestly, and I can say I've known a few of them, captains and deputy inspectors, that had no qualms if they saw something going down, stepping into action. And matter of fact, one of them recently passed away. He was my captain just before I retired, and he made it up to deputy inspector. And I have fond memories of, I'm going to say Captain Giramonti, but I believe he was Inspector Giramonti when he retired. We do have good cops out there, honestly.
Yeah, I believe it.
We're fortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, but, and it's the same thing we see with like Supreme Court justices or Tom Homan, high-ranking officials, or even the president himself with, assassination attempts. We've got doxing. We've got people going and protesting in your yard, peacefully, quote unquote. I mean, it's a shame that we've become so divided as a nation that we feel the need to do those things that people in power feel threatened. It's a shame that a sanctuary politician feels threatened. Politicians shouldn't feel threatened regardless of what side of the aisle they are on, regardless if I agree with them politically or not. I don't agree with Tim Walz at all. I think he's absolutely crazy and derelict of duty. The same reason with Fauci or former DHS Secretary Mayorkas, but that doesn't mean I want them to be hurt. It doesn't mean that I want them to be doxxed. And so we've got to step back and realize, where's the humanity? Where's the common sense, and reform happens on paper. Reform doesn't happen via protest. Reform happens through Congress and needs to be codified. Talk to your local legislator. Don't go to their house and try and dox them or hurt them. It's not going to get what you want. It's going to make you look crazy.
Yeah, it does. But a little bit of American history, that at the time that we were first started as a nation, when the politicians went out, they would stand what we called the soapbox. But if the crowd didn't like you, you were bound to be tarred and feathered.
Yeah, or what, tomatoes thrown at you?
No, actually, they would physically tar and feather them.
Yeah, we've got kind of a rough history, don't we?
Yeah,
we've come a long way, so let's not backtrack.
There's a couple I wouldn't mind seeing them tarred and feathered.
Tarred and feathered, and then the English, what would they'd quarter you? So you got to be careful. So, yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you another question. There was a decision by a circuit court. I think it's the Ninth Circuit got split on this one, about the detention of an illegal alien prior to deportation. Now, there was a law back in 1976 that said that prior to deporting them, you have to detain them. And it seems no one paid much attention to it, and it came into court, and the court says, well, yeah, you do have to detain them before you ship them back over the border. Have you heard
Yeah.
anything about this?
Well, one, it sounds like you're talking about a split circuit is one of the main reasons why we have the Supreme Court. If you've got two different circuits saying two different things based off of one piece of law, that's why we've got the Supreme Court. So hopefully, it doesn't go that far. But yeah, that law, and a lot of states tend to ignore it because they tend to ignore federal law on the immigration front if they're a sanctuary, right? But it's just designed to keep the American people safe. If you've got someone who's committed crimes and maybe they came here legally, but they abused their visa, they overstayed, I can see an argument saying, "Hey, we shouldn't have to detain them. They'll deport themselves when the time comes." But I still don't agree with that. They should be detained. They committed, fraud in and of itself. They broke the rules of their visa. And then you've got people who come here legally or illegally. They commit heinous crimes, and then we expect them to be walking free on the streets until they get deported. If they've already committed a legal injury and then they committed a crime when they're here, what makes you think they're going to leave just because we told them to? That makes no sense. And so what those laws do are they're designed to keep the American people safe. And so anybody who argues with that it doesn't make sense to me. As Rush Limbaugh said, it doesn't make logic. And so we've got to get back to detaining. Otherwise, we're going to be back in a catch and release society like we were under Biden.
And not only that, by detaining them, you can then run them through the system and see if they are wanted for anything else. How many children would have been not trafficked? How many young women would not have been raped and murdered? How many have we lost because of an illegal alien who the revolving door justice catered to? Yeah. It stops the revolving door justice on someone who's here illegally as an immigrant. A friend of mine, Bob Bishardi, would not have been murdered by an illegal alien who was deported 3 times. Had he been held in detention, Officer Machado would be alive today.
Yeah. There's so many preventable deaths. We need to start treating illegal aliens like we do American citizens who have committed heinous crimes. We don't let them post bond. We don't give you a bail amount. You're in here and you're going to be in here until your proceedings begin. And so it should be the same way for illegal aliens of whatever crime they committed. I believe that if you have simply committed the crime of crossing illegally, that you should be detained and put in holding before you're deported. Because I think all crimes, when it comes to immigration, they're equal. You come here illegally, you commit a crime or you don't. You're still here illegally, and you've got to be deported. And so, at the end of the day, you're right. We see these headlines a lot of people being heinously abused or murdered. Some children, some adults, women, and men. And you see that illegal alien had been deported like 3 times or had illegally entered 3 times. And then you see the rap sheet is like so long. They've committed petty theft up to high profile crimes. And you're thinking to yourself, why are they walking around? And then you go and you tie the knot together and you see they're in a sanctuary state. You see that their governor is woke as a joke. You see that they put illegal aliens, they prioritize them above their own American constituents. And that's why that individual died. And it's because they weren't detained and then deported. And so we've got to go back to detaining. And people, they talk a lot about private detention facilities and how they don't like them. But, not all illegal aliens are in private detention facilities. Some of them are in government-ran ones, and they're up to snuff, as the old timers say. And it's better than them walking around, with the ability to commit more crimes. And so, but yeah, you see a high rate of that in sanctuary jurisdictions because they do not cooperate with ICE. They won't detain. They think it's bad for the illegal alien. And I'm thinking, why don't you think about what's bad for the American constituent for just a second and see how that hits you?
I'm thinking back when I first moved to South Carolina here, they used to post on the internet all the recent arrests with the mugshots.
Yeah,
and when
Texas
you looked
used to do that.
When I used to look at it, you can count how many are going to be held for detention, meaning ICE is saying, wait a minute, hold them for us, because they're obviously illegally. And a large percentage of the crimes that were being committed that these people were arrested for, they were illegal. They were here illegally. And people think, well, you're such a red state, and our only sanctuary city is Charleston. you think it wouldn't come down to where I'm at, which people
Yeah.
consider small town. But it is. It's trickled through all of our society.
Trickle down immigration. Yeah. They feel
Yeah, I have to
comfortable.
start a new phrase.
Yeah. They feel comfortable. It used to be that, yeah, people would go straight to LA or Atlanta or New York City or Seattle. But no, they're everywhere. Every state is a border state now. Every state essentially feels like a sanctuary jurisdictions because, unfortunately, the Biden administration, I mean, we had people don't think about it. Open borders for one day is really bad. Open borders for 4 years plus is horrible. What we've done to the nation is horrible, and we're trying to clean it up. But it's going to be, I mean, I try to stay really optimistic, but it's going to be so hard to clean it up because those 18 million illegal aliens that we have, they have babies. There's a ripple effect. They have families. They bring in other families under chain migration after they adjust their status, and the results are here to stay. And those results will cascade onto future American generations for years. And it's a shame that we have to spend the majority of this administration's time cleaning up the misdoings of the previous administration. But at least we've got someone in office who cares. At least we've got someone in office who sees the future and the projection. Can you imagine if we had another left-leaning, open borders, woke as a joke president, this administration, what we would look like? So at least we're doing something about it. But there's definitely going to be a ripple effect for years, and not all the results have been seen. I mean, we see it in our school system. We see it in the hospital system. We see it how Americans are fighting for jobs against illegal aliens or people who are here on some kind of status with work authorization that they don't deserve. We see it in a bunch of different sectors, but we also really see it when it comes to crime. And fortunately, we're trying to clean up the streets, but it's like we've got these sanctuary jurisdictions fighting against us the entire time.
All right. Well, it looks like we have our guest in, Hannah. Let me bring in our first victim of the day.
Oh, no.
Okay. Oh, yes. We'll bring on John Leake, and the author of Mind Viruses. Now, I was thinking of you, John, when I was watching the Fauci hearings. And I had the natural instinct in me just to want to reach into the TV and slap that silly smirk off his face. I don't know how many Americans wanted to do that.
Well, Fauci's been doing this for a while now, these jousting matches with Senator Paul. He's been doing it since 2021. Now, what's notable is back in 2021, everything about his demeanor and body language and tone indicated he was very, very confident that he was being protected, at the highest levels of the Department of Defense, HHS, the White House. Now he's kind of clammed up. But my view of this is perhaps some people regard it as controversial or paradoxical. I actually don't think that these Senate hearings are the proper way to have justice done in the matter of Anthony Fauci. The proper way to do this would be a Justice Department referral and criminal prosecution. So, we could talk about that if you think your audience might be interested in hearing my view of the matter.
You believe me, they will be. A question I had was a friend of mine. He's the Attorney General in my state. I know he'd be the first one to jump on this bandwagon. That the fact that he cited the Fifth Amendment, which he really doesn't have the right to because he had pardon. Now he's also subject now to state charges. And if you had the Attorney General in all 50 states charging for the wrongful death of every person that died either from the vaccine or they were in one of those nursing homes or veterans facilities where they lodged the COVID patients.
I think the problem that lawyers are going to be up against is that Fauci was just the face and the spokesman of, I think, the reality is that every major federal agency was complicit. The Department of Defense, Health and Human Services, the CIA, the FBI. Here's the thing, just to cut straight through all of this. If you look at President Biden's preemptive pardon, it's very important to look at the start date of that, the period of Fauci's conduct that's covered. It starts on January the 1st, 2014. Now, that's a very important date because it was in January of 2014 that this grant proposal submitted by EcoHealth Alliance, Peter Daszak, the lead virologist doing the technical side of this, was UNC professor Ralph Barrick. He's the world's foremost authority on coronaviruses. The proposal proposed that we're going to work with Shangji Li and her team at the Wuhan Institute of Virology to deliberately make bat coronaviruses transmissible and infectious to humans. Now, the purported objective of this grant proposal was we want to study how such viruses could eventually emerge in nature. The title of the grant proposal was Understanding the Risk of Emergent Bat Coronavirus, the emergent risk of bat coronaviruses. So the idea is, we'll go ahead and manipulate these viruses in a lab in order to emulate what could happen in nature. And once we have it in a lab, then we can start testing therapeutics and vaccines. So that was the stated goal of the research project. Now, when did the NIH, of which Anthony Fauci is the head of the NIAID, when did they review that grant proposal? January of 2014. So this is where the criminal conduct commences. Now, in October of 2014, just a few months after this first money is transferred to these guys, the Obama administration has brought to their attention this gain of function research, making influenza or coronaviruses deliberately infectious to humans. This is dangerous. So there is what was called the administrative pause on gain of function. U.S. Government agency said, we're not going to be doing this anymore, at least for the time being. We may review it later. So what became of these researchers who had just been given funding? What happened was the NIAID or the NIH grandfathered them. They said, well, we approved of your research before the administrative pause, so you can just keep doing it. Now, all of this is documented. What I'm saying is all documented in grant proposals and academic papers. One of the most remarkable things about Senator Paul, and I like him very much, I've met him, I've discussed this with him. One of the most remarkable things is he keeps jousting with Fauci over gain of function. But if you read the actual papers that were produced as part of this NIH grant, they themselves are stating in their papers, we are doing a gain of function. We're able to do it because it was grandfathered. It was approved before the administrative pause in October of 14. So the documents are all there. And now I come to my point. The documentary evidence is sufficient for a criminal prosecution. We don't need to examine the witness any further in a Senate inquiry. It's not necessary. The evidence is there. So I think that Senator Paul and Johnson they're acting in good faith, but this isn't the proper forum. The proper forum is federal court.
Do you think it'll go that way eventually?
No, I don't. And I'll tell you why. Todd Blanche knows this. The liabilities for the U.S. government and all these agencies are so astronomical. I mean, they all knew about this. I knew about it, and I'm just a true crime investigator hanging out in my study. I mean, they know about it. They know about these documents. It's all there. I'll tell you guys something else. And I've started emphasizing this in interviews because it just doesn't get talked about enough. In the year, it's a little technical what I'm about to tell you, but see if you can follow it. So in the year 2022, a Dutch team starts looking at this particular genetic sequence. It's a 19 nucleotide sequence that overlaps a 12 nucleotide sequence that codes to produce this spike protein furin cleavage site. Without going into a lot of molecular biology, this is the nucleic acid part of SARS-CoV-2, the virus, that enables it, the little spicule, to dock onto a human airway tract cell. And people marveled at this furin cleavage site. It looked like this marvelous thing that we would not expect to come about in nature. So a lot of virologists were like, this is fascinating. We've never seen this. And it kind of looks like it has the hand of man on it. So what they did is this Dutch team in 2022, they did a patent database search. Believe it or not, if it's not a natural genetic sequence, if it's been modified, you can patent it. It could have immense commercial value for research, drug development, vaccine development. So they do what's called a blast patent database search for that sequence. And they get a perfect match, with a genetic sequence patented by Moderna, the vaccine manufacturer. And the year of the patent was 2016. So the year that Anthony Fauci's NIAID started working with Moderna to develop a messenger RNA vaccine against coronaviruses, that was in 2016. So the Dutch team published their findings in Frontiers of Virology, its prominent academic paper, and it's not been challenged. There's some Mickey Mouse like notes of, well, so after it was published, clearly somebody came in and said, well, this isn't 100% or whatever, but it is. I know the biostatistician that worked on this. It's rock solid. So that is smoking gun evidence that the same group of guys that developed this pathogen in a lab were the same group of guys that developed the vaccine countermeasure. So, we're now in the territory where the arsonist is collecting the insurance. I mean, that's what we're looking at here. The evidence of this is very, very strong. Why doesn't the Department of Justice touch it? Because it would just blow up the whole government. I mean, every agency knows about this. Every agency played along with this.
Switching gears just a second. I don't understand why left-leaning individuals cling to Fauci as some form of a savior when I've just seen a bunch of resurfaced videos of him fear-mongering the AIDS epidemic. And it's like those were hidden until now he's on this quote-unquote, non-prosecutorial trial where nothing's really going to come out of it. But wouldn't you think that would go against their agenda? Why did they all forget? Why did these now just get resurfaced? I mean, he was absolutely, just horrible to that community. And it's just interesting to see how they pick and choose when they like him and when they don't. And I just don't get it.
So I have personal experience with this. I won't name names, but there are people in my immediate social circle who have a personal identity tied up with what they perceive to be Democrat Party orthodoxy. And so Fauci was cultivated, he was made into a kind of cult of personality within this political cohort. And you have to understand that a lot of these people, they will only look at sources of information that flatter their notions about this. Like, you're kind of going out there and looking around and procuring different documentary evidence, including videos and so forth. They're not seeing it. They've just pulled a blind over there.
See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
Yeah, this is just preservation of something like, Saint Anthony. And one of the things that I talk about in my new book is how mind viruses.
Nice cover.
Yeah, so that people said, well, that's a horrifying cover. My mom wanted me to tell the publisher to change it. That's actually an
mom told you, and you didn't do it.
I defied her. This is an allusion to a Goya painting, the title of which was Saturn Devouring His Son. Mm-hmm. So Goya had this nightmare vision that the men who run the world will eat their children before they'll give up power. So, that's kind of what I'm doing with this. So, where am I going with this? Saint Anthony, the cult of Anthony Fauci, it's something I talk about in my new book. We've seen in our COVID era a sort of regression back to a pre-Enlightenment kind of religious orthodoxy. People don't actually talk about empirical data and facts. They'll have their kind of a belief system that readily packages up and explains the world. And they're actually not interested in seeing any data or information that could challenge that orthodoxy. I think primarily because they, for whatever reasons, have invested in it as a sort of personal identity. I once listened to a former psychologist that consulted the CIA, and he said, if you want to persuade somebody, you don't give them facts. You start talking to them in a way that touches on their personal identity. Mm-hmm. If you can get them to buy into a proposition with their identity, they'll go for it. And they'll go along with it, and they'll actually, hold on to it. But if it's just, hey, have you, I know you dig Anthony Fauci and you think he was the savior of mankind, but did you know, and you rattle off a bunch of facts, that's not going to induce any kind of spiritual change. So they'll cling on to their Saint Anthony. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because when COVID did start to arise, as it was in China, I had a couple of friends that were there in the Wuhan province because they were missionaries, and they were working there. And they said the soldiers came up to the door, knocked on it, and says, "You're foreigners. You're not allowed into our hospitals, so you better go home now." Right. And this was back in, I think, August of 20, that I was getting messages from them saying, stock up on gloves, stock up on masks, and so forth. This is how you make hand sanitizer. So I knew it was coming because they actually allowed their people to travel on the Chinese New Year. It's the most traveled Chinese day in the world. And they had their guys going to Italy and other countries that they had their roads and bridges projects. So I'm saying they're spreading this by just letting their people travel freely.
Yeah, but
they're saying we've got a pandemic here at home.
Our intelligence, hang on now, our intelligence agencies knew that. I mean, we've got spooks in Wuhan. We have a consulate in Wuhan.
Absolutely. But this little tiny podcaster was talking about it before it actually hit here.
Right.
So if I know about it, why didn't they do something to protect us? Because their money was invested in it.
Well, do you think they'll do it again?
I mean, look,
sure.
The U.S. government biotechnology was shared with the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which is known, by the way, to be in the final instance run by the Chinese military. That's never been explained. I mean, what SARS-CoV-2 is it's for the most part non-lethal, but it is a bioweapon, 100%. And if you study the doctrine of bioweapons, the most effective bioweapon is not one that's super lethal. It's one that's disruptive. So a virulent influenza or coronavirus is the perfect bioweapon. You don't need any kind of military hardware to spread it. It's very infectious. It just naturally spreads from human to human. It creates fear, confusion, and disruption. That's the whole point of it. And it is a bioweapon. And who funded, who gave the original grant to Moderna in Cambridge, Massachusetts? It was DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project. This was always a Department of Defense pet project. So the concept of a bioweapon is, well, we have the bioweapon. It's very disruptive. We also have a vaccine too. And we could, if push came to shove, keep that vaccine only for our own people. So this is the game. Now, how exactly it got out of the lab, Was there a malevolent actor that deliberately did it? You know, we don't yet know. But I don't think Congress is going to get to the bottom of it. It would require discovery in a criminal trial.
Yeah, and what I found when I was doing my original research, just to let you know, I've been doing the show for 16 years. But what I did my original research, I was looking at who else funded it besides our federal government. And I was looking down the list, and I was shocked to see Bill and Melinda Gates.
Of course, so he's
and I'm looking at the organizations and charities that you would think would be doing something beneficial, but they were funneling their money into the Wuhan lab.
Well, look, Bill Gates, he was at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland in 2019. And he said, vaccines are by far my greatest investment, by far. He said, all of my investments and vaccines, we've had at least a 20x return. So Bill Gates is fascinated by vaccines. He's kind of a weird guy, but he's also a money guy. He's a business. He's the world's greatest monopolist. And he came out and said at the beginning of this thing, we'll only be able to go back to normal when everyone on Earth, talk about a monopolist. He goes for the gusto. John D. Rockefeller wanted to control all the oil and gas assets in the United States and the railroad transport thereof. Bill Gates just wants everybody on Earth will need the product that the Gates Foundation is invested in. So, but there again, the knuckleheaditude of these people that think he's some kind of savior. So, like, why do they believe that? It's just so weird. But again, mind viruses. It's a mind virus. It's an irrational idea.
Where can we find your book?
Amazon. Go to Amazon. Amazon can ramp the thing up and start advertising it, but I need to get some momentum on it. People need to read it. It will lay all this out, how we're constantly being manipulated. Look, the face of the threat changes, but the script is always identical. It's just a different face, but the script is the same. God bless you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Go to Amazon, get it. You'll love it. Read a review.
That's a good line. The face changes, but the script stays the same.
It stays. It's always the same. Boogeyman, be terrified. But hope is on the way in the form of the U.S. government and its buddies in industry. And we are going to have to create out of thin air $2.3 trillion, like the CARES Act, or God knows how many trillion with the TARP, the bailouts of all. There's always some bailout. There's always some gigantic transfer of wealth in order to save us. It's like,
well, now you led me to a question, because I'm a retired New York City cop, and I retired back in '96, the city that we left safe. So what I see going up there just drives me crazy. Now, Madami is going to open up those grocery stores in all the boroughs, all 5 boroughs, and everyone will get a 30% discount off the price that they have on the shelf. And I'm thinking to this as okay, fine. They're going to give you a 30% discount, but how much of a markup are they going to put on the item?
Right.
And in the interim, where you could have gone over to your corner bodega and buy the same item for the same exact price, now you have to
support a small business at the same time.
And most of these bodegas are run by legal immigrants. See, Hannah is the immigration investigator for FAIRUS.org, so formerly of Heritage Foundation. But I'm looking at this as what a whole big scam.
Yeah, but I'll tell you ladies something, if I may interject. There's something, this is some distraction game that's going on. Mamdani, whether wittingly or unwittingly, he's the diversion distraction guy. Whenever you see just nonsense like this, you can almost be certain it's not some organic cockamamie idea coming out of this, who comes from a very privileged background, by the way. This is distracting us from something.
The caliphate of New York City. That's what it is. You see the monks having their daily prayer in Times Square, But when the Pope was visiting New York, did they allow him to do a service in Times Square?
Yeah,
No other religion, but you've got the Caliphate of New York City.
But this too is a distraction. All of these things that create a public spectacle and get us all worked up and talking to each other and debating and Fox News. And can you believe that? Something else is going on, and this is a misdirection trick. I'm not saying that the Muslims and this kind of extravagant imposition of whatever, but this is a distraction from something. The people
Wasn't he the same one who got caught for accepting monetary gifts from, foreign entities and terrorist-related people? Isn't this the same guy?
Well, I don't know. I've not looked that much into his background, but what I can tell you is whenever we see these things that get we, the people, all riled up and talking about it, and can you believe what's going on here? And Fox News is talking about it. That's usually an indication that somebody quietly behind the scenes is stealing money or transferring money. This is a distraction. I don't know what it's a distraction from, but it's a distraction.
That is true. You always have to look for the wizard behind the curtain. Matter of fact, Wizard of Oz is one of my favorite movies.
And does your book only cover the topic of COVID, or is there multiple topics?
No, it's viruses, plural. It's transgender, climate change, racism, all of these moral and security panics that we've had since 2001. Okay. I go through all of them, and I show how they're all connected. All of these crises are connected. And it's usually the same oligarchy that's responsible for all of them. And by the way, this isn't theory. I carefully document all of this. The book is
cite your sources.
Yeah.
Well, getting back to Fauci just for a second, because when I was doing my research, I was amazed at the scam he actually ran in the NIH. He would have an organization looking for a grant from the NIH. He says, well, you give me this award and you give me X amount of money with that award, and I will make sure you get your grant. Right. And I'm looking at one after another, and then the royalties that his scientists were getting with them helping to make the vaccine. And even his wife was in on the whole scam. So it was millions upon millions of dollars that Fauci was pocketing. So that's the man behind the curtain there.
Yeah, he's the guy that kind of in the final instance controls this flow of grant money and subsidies. And so, you'll notice that there's nothing of particular interest to our public health agencies that's free. I mean, are cheap, or there's never any discussion of something that's off patent, a simple molecule. I mean, we saw during COVID, hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, they were long ago approved by the FDA. They have some of the best safety profiles in the business. They're perfectly safe, and there was good reason to believe that they had some antiviral efficacy and then anti-inflammatory as well, but they were just ruthlessly suppressed in order to promote this completely experimental messenger RNA vaccine. So Fauci and his gang, I mean, NIAID had an economic interest in the vaccine. I mean, there was never a clear conflict of interest. Moderna was the commercial face of it, but NIAID had a 50% interest in it. So, they're pushing their own experimental vaccine, and they're suppressing anything that could actually treat the sick. So these guys are total villains, but the U.S. government and all of these agencies played along with it.
Yeah, it's funny because something that's simple as ivermectin, and there's the other one, I'm always going to mispronounce this one, remdesivir or something like that, that they gave everyone. And when you look at the stats of how many people died from the
remdesivir.
Remdesivir.
So that was
run deaths. The nurse said it as run deaths here.
Run death is here. Yeah. So that was one of Fauci's pet drugs that he'd been shepherding along. He thought it would be an Ebola drug. It didn't. The Ebola trials were totally abysmal. It looked like the dough that had been invested. I think it was pharmaceutical company in San Francisco, Gilead. It looked like Gilead and their pals, their cronies with Anthony. It looked like the dough they put into this drug was just going to be a loss. But then along comes SARS-CoV-2, and Fauci says, well, remdesivir was a dud with Ebola, but we'll just slap, to be used for COVID on the thing. This is the kind of gangster corruption that we saw. And I'll tell you something about remdesivir. The WHO, which is basically a kind of a plaything of Bill Gates, he's the largest donor, even they said, well, in a hospital setting, remdesivir is not indicated. It's real hard on the kidneys. So even the WHO said, this should not be administered to hospitalized patients. So, it's just blatant, out in the open corruption. That's what we're looking at here.
Well, we got our next guest. Hopefully he'll be joining us in a split second. I'm watching him play around with his camera and stuff. We got Ryan Morgan from the Epoch Times. If you want to stick around for that.
Say hello. I'm a big fan. No,
there
ladies,
you go. There we go, Ryan Morgan.
Yeah, the Epoch Times, the only newspaper in America. That's what I call it.
I get it in the mailbox. Yeah. I don't get it just on the computer. I get it in my mailbox.
And I call Jan Jekielek the only investigative reporter in the United States. But we have this young, fresh-faced man here. He's joining the Epoch Times. You got carrying the baton forward. So you ladies and gentlemen have a great time. I have to go to another meeting.
You stay safe, right, John. I know the government doesn't like you.
But your website is Mind Virus.
I'm not suicidal.
Okay. You heard it here, guys.
Let me get the website out, which is Mind Virus's John Leake with an E at the end.
Correct. Or author John Leake is my other. Buy it on Amazon. I would be most grateful. You'll be very edified and entertained.
All right.
Thanks, John.
Bye,
God
guys.
bless. All right. Here we go. Hello, Ryan. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you? Is my audio coming through all right?
You're in a sound room, aren't you?
Yeah, it was the only room available, and I haven't quite figured out the lighting in here. It's pretty brutal, so I'm sorry about that.
Well, you sound crystal clear, so
don't worry about that. I mean, holy cow, the stuff that is hitting the fan left and right lately, it's like you can't keep up with it. And I was reading all the articles and stuff that you've been writing, and how you keep up with it. It's amazing. Because Trump was just having the meeting in Camp David, and he touched on so many different subjects. But one of the things they were talking about is Iran. And now we're hearing reports supposedly about a shortage of weapons on our side, of Patriot missiles and other, what's the other one? The terminal high altitude. The Patriot and whatever the terminal high one is.
Well, how does this happen? How do we have a shortage?
Yeah. So this has been a persistent issue. I even going into the Iran conflict, even before that started, there was a lot of talk about, okay, well, what is our magazine depth? How long can we kind of sustain this back and forth where they're shooting missiles and drones at us and we are knocking them out of the air? We have great equipment for doing that. The terminal high altitude defense missile and the Patriot, as you mentioned, both very capable systems. I think they've proven themselves to be better than expected in a lot of settings, but they are not an infinite resource. And so one of the issues has been, over the duration of this conflict, as long as it goes, as long as the Iranians are still fielding, they don't even have to be terribly sophisticated drones or missiles, as long as they pose a credible threat that they can harm U.S. troops deployed anywhere around the region, we're going to be burning through our interceptors. And we've seen quite a bit of that. And obviously, this conflict has not resolved, I think, as quickly as was expected. I think the initial timeline was 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 2 months. We're at about month 5. obviously a little stop and go. Sometimes it's been a little bit more dramatic than others. The other thing right now, obviously, is that it's looking like this conflict might expand into the
Yes.
Red Sea with the Houthis in Yemen. I've actually got a piece coming out about that. It's not out yet, not published yet, but that is another major risk factor for us burning through our interceptor stocks. And the way I like to describe it is even if we can intercept all of these incoming Iranian missiles and drones, it's an opportunity cost. The interceptors we use here are interceptors that we don't have available to us if another conflict pops up somewhere else in the world, say in the Indo-Pacific with China, something over Taiwan, something in that region. That is something where it's going to take several years to build back up the stockpile we would want to have going into a major conflict with a sophisticated enemy.
Well, are we working on it? Like, I mean, are we trying to produce more? Are we trying to procure more funds? I mean,
Yeah. Oh, I mean, absolutely. And this is something where Secretary Hegseth was going around the country all throughout January and February before this war. He was doing this. It was called the Arsenal of Freedom tour, where he's touring all these facilities. The last one that he visited was on February 27th. It was a Patriot missile. It was an engine factory for building Patriot missiles. What happened the very next day after that tour is U.S. forces started bombing Iran. So that was obviously definitely at the front of their minds going into this conflict is we need to make sure that we have enough munitions. There have been deals announced where they're saying we're going to triple, we're going to quadruple production. That's great. Obviously that's what you want to see is increased production. However, the problem is that takes time. It is an on-ramp. They're building that on-ramp. So even though they've diagnosed the problem and they figured out the solution, that solution is going to take time.
It's interesting that we ever even got to this point where we would need to be rushing against the clock. I mean, I think that we should always have a big stockpile, a big arsenal. So maybe were they all just depleted from this conflict? Did we not expect it to be going this long? I mean, I think just because you gauge a conflict to go a little bit longer than you thought doesn't mean that you run out of everything you need. So it just seems like, I don't know.
Yeah. I think a few things need to be taken into account. One, the global war on terror era, for the longest time, we were not dealing with highly sophisticated equipped enemies with ballistic missiles. The biggest drone threat that we saw were these small FPV drones. But Iran is a step up from that in terms of their drones, and they certainly have quite a few ballistic missiles. The other thing is obviously Patriot missiles specifically were in high demand during the still ongoing the war in Ukraine. We were given a lot of those systems to the Ukrainians, and then even just in some earlier flashpoints in the Middle East, there was a couple of rounds of Iranian ballistic missile salvos at Israel where we went ahead and gave them some of our terminal high altitude air defense, our THAAD missiles, a couple of batteries to help them defend against those barrages. So just over the course of a few years, we've definitely dug into a lot of our stockpile. We've sort of awoken to this new world of we're no longer fighting small terrorist insurgencies. We're fighting increasingly capable nation state adversaries.
Well, getting into these weapons, though, especially the Patriot, Trump is announcing an agreement between him and Zelensky that they made where Ukraine will now make some of these weapons, especially the Patriot. So we're actually giving our technology and our secrets to another country.
I'm so out of the loop with foreign policy. I'm learning a lot this session, guys. So keep it coming.
Well, I'm wondering if this is a two-prong attack that Trump is looking at, because he wants to put forward what Lindsey Graham had negotiated. The what the heck was it called? It was the sanctions on Russia, Sanctions Act. They're pushing forward on that. That's a Oh, good Lord. I am having
Got it.
major brain farts. It's Democrats and Republicans that put this
Oh,
together.
but bipartisan.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's the word, bipartisan.
I know that.
So between Ukraine getting the technology and the ability to manufacture these weapons, as well as now throwing the sanctions on Russia, do you think that will finally cow Putin into letting go on Ukraine and stop the helping Iran? Because now there's a link between Putin and Iran, which I said was there all along. Do you think it would be enough to put Putin in so much of a corner that he has to relent?
That is an interesting question. So obviously, the Ukrainians having the ability to build their own patriots will definitely be a huge asset to them in the long run. In the short term, it's kind of a tricky question. We kind of touched on it a little bit with our efforts to increase our own stockpiles here domestically. It is the right solution in the long term, but in the short term, there's going to be some on ramps, so it's going to take time. I think for the Ukrainians, really, it's going to be a great option or it's going to be a great asset to them when this war with Russia has concluded and they're able to build up a stockpile. That creates deterrence against a future conflict with Russia, where the Russians will say, okay, bad idea to try and go in and start this over again, because the Ukrainians have a great stockpile of interceptors now. In the short term, it might give the Ukrainians some leverage, but it's not likely that they're going to have built up a massive stockpile. I mean, these missiles take quite a bit of time to produce. I can't remember the exact figures, so I hope you'll forgive me for that. But it does take time to even produce a batch of a couple hundred. I think we're talking about a year or so for that kind of production level, and to scale it up from scratch in Ukraine, it's probably going to, I mean, there is some kind of wartime necessity. They've really proven that they will build systems fast and implement them fast because they're in an emergency crisis scenario, but it will take time for them to build that out.
Now, one other thing I want to touch on, there's a lot, I got a couple of more than just one other thing. It was Sanctioning Russia Act. That was the one that Graham was putting forward. I have it in my notes. All they had to do is move my head over an inch and look. But it's the rise of Islamic extremism in Europe and the UK. And we just saw this over the last couple of days. Something like 60 some odd thousand came from Morocco over to a small little territory that is off the coast of Africa, directly across from the Gibraltar. I mean, stone's throw. I mean, are we seeing the Islamization of Europe and the UK?
I can't say that I've covered this issue very closely. I have some general awareness of the. I'm trying to remember the name of the exclave. So it's a Spanish territory, obviously in North Africa. Whether this is kind of a repeat of a trend that we saw about a decade ago, obviously the Syrian civil war was a huge driving factor for a lot of refugee traffic of all types, whether that's people legitimately looking for a better life somewhere where there's not a war going on, or whether it's sort of a deliberate infiltration effort. We certainly see conflict does drive a lot of that stuff, and certainly there is resurgent conflict. Maybe a couple of factors to consider with Africa specifically is there is rising conflict in Mali, which is a North African Saharan state. That could be part of what's driving some of it. It does seem like there are some early indications that the Moroccan government was kind of goading this along, kind of relaxing their border controls to sort of create the conditions where you'd have a crisis situation here.
What did they
on that
gain
Spanish? I'm not entirely sure. I have to just caveat, I'm not well read up enough to properly assess motives. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself.
We're going to hold everything you say against you.
Okay, yeah, we'll keep this on the record. Yeah, I have to apologize. I do feel slightly underqualified to give a great analysis on this topic.
Well,
You're fine.
you wrote an excellent article about the Saudi coalition that has formed to fight the Houthis and the attacks by Iran. Is that actually working? Are the Saudis able to coalesce the other countries to make a concerted effort to stop Iran?
I mean, certainly the Saudis are a very powerful player in the region, and they are able to kind of steer a coalition very effectively. They're a big, rich country. They are well established, powerful. One thing to consider with Yemen specifically is they actually did form this coalition back in 2015. So they've been trying for a decade now to aid the internationally recognized Yemeni government, which is in exile because the Houthis took over the Yemeni capital, Sana'a, in 2015. They have been trying to regain control of the capital and knock out the Houthis for quite some time. The Houthis are not to be underestimated. They are a quite resilient group. They are well practiced in enduring heavy bombardment, and pretty stark conditions. They're not getting a lot of food, not a lot of calories. It's a dry area. There's been a famine this entire time, so they are pretty resilient to. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that to to pump them up and promote them. It's just sort of like you have to take into account who you're dealing with and what their strengths and weaknesses are. They're not the most militarily sophisticated, although they are building increasingly advanced weapons, and they are demonstrating some internal production capability. It's not all just Iran sending them shipments of weapons. They are starting to develop their own domestic production capacity. So I do believe that you will start to see an increase of action by the Saudis. This is an inflection point where they're going to start hitting a lot harder because their interests are at stake. The Houthis have been attacking the oil infrastructure, and this is actually a funny point because after the standoff in the Strait of Hormuz with Iran taking out shipments trying to get through, the Saudis said, okay, well, let's stop sending all of our ships through the Strait of Hormuz and move all of our oil to the other side, to the Red Sea. So they rerouted all of their oil to the port of Yanbu. And over this past weekend, the Houthis started launching missiles and drones at the port of Yanbu to damage that. So now it's kind of, the Saudis made their move. Now they're checked in another area. So I think they're feeling the constraint, and that's going to really drive them to escalate, and we're going to see some heavy bombardment. I don't know when. I can't predict the exact timeline, but it's coming.
Why not?
Yeah, why are you here then? If you can't predict the exact timeline, Ryan.
Working on it.
No mercy.
No
mercy, Ryan. No mercy.
All good.
Well, one of the reasons why I threw the Islamization of the UK also is we recently had that episode of the gay pride thing that was going on, and the Muslim who actually happened to have been born there, who was still radicalized, that rammed his car into the crowd, which I believe killed one person and injured so many additional.
Gays for Palestine, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's real smart on that one. Yeah, go ahead. Where's the nearest tall building I can toss you off of?
Yeah.
But I've also seen complaints from people in Ireland saying that Ireland itself has been massively taken over, which is erasing all Irish heritage. So that's why I'm thinking that the whole idea is to make a worldwide caliphate. It's looking like. I mean, Mandami in New York City is a perfect example.
Yeah, in terms of assessing trends, I mean, one thing I'll go back to is persistent conflict in the Middle East is it has second order consequences. So the more we intervene in the Middle East, the greater the risk that there is instability, and that will create, kind of a push factor that pushes people out of the region. Some of them are just legitimately trying to be where the bombs aren't falling. I get
Right.
that. Some of them are, they have an axe to grind. They've got a cousin who got blown up, and so now they've got a grudge, and they're going to go exercise that grudge where they can. But I mean, these are risks that need to be taken into account as we look at policy. It's not just a matter of, oh, can we militarily defeat, Saddam Hussein in Iraq? Sure, certainly. Can we militarily defeat the Iranians right now? I mean, yeah, we're in the process of doing it. I think from a military perspective, we're winning in terms of a geo-diplomatic long-term solution that's shaping up. That remains to be seen. But as we do this, it's not just a calculation of, are we winning militarily? It's also, what are these second order consequences? What does this do to the region? What does it do to everyday people living there? Are they going to try to leave the area? Are they going to try and, because they can't beat us on the battlefield, try and immigrate to another country and get their revenge, on a soft target somewhere? These are things to consider. I can't say specifically that there's a concerted conspiracy to create a caliphate within Europe. I think we're just sort of looking at natural trends that come from, I mean, a generation. We're talking at least 20 years worth of sustained conflict in that region. These things happen.
Well, I'm looking at the clock. There's only just a few minutes left. One of these things that you wrote last Friday caught my eye because I'm married to a Cuban. But you were talking about what the U.S. sanctions are doing in the energy section there, and how Cuba is trying to deal with it. The economic sanctions put on against the energy sector and individuals, but they've also gone to. They're also targeting the medical missions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people are, this new DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, they're touting how wonderful it's going to be, free medicine, free this, free that. But then when you look at what Cuba does, where they actually coerce the medical professionals into going on these missions, and they have to give up anywhere from 50 to 95% of their pay to be actually slave labor.
Yeah, I mean, certainly these medical missions, if you look back throughout their history, and I did a little bit for, for the sake of this article, this has been a practice. I don't know specifically that the forced labor component has been, but these medical missions overseas have been kind of a huge sort of PR campaign for Cuba going back decades. I mean, even, basically since the time that Castro took over. So this has been a huge PR piece for them. I don't know kind of the rate of economic decay that comes with the communist economic model to, at what point it becomes the only way that this is economically sustainable is through forced labor. But yeah, I mean, that is kind of an interesting aspect to look at as you examine this program over its lifespan. But yeah, I mean, certainly they have tried to use these missions to promote the idea of, Cuba is a great country and it's doing great things for its people, and it could, these ideas could be great for you as well. Some of these things catch on. I was watching Mom Donnie's presentation about the new
grocery stores.
Yeah, the new grocery stores. And I mean, I've got a lot of questions. So I have a few colleagues. I'm in DC, but I have a few colleagues in New York, and I just from a purely, I don't know, scientific sort of just economic, let's study this out. Like, this is going to be a really interesting use case to see, or a good case study to see how this stuff actually works in practice. I have a lot of questions about those groceries, and I'm not the kind of person that really interacts with these kinds of topics very often. But I just, from what I heard, I was like, that sounds, that I
A little
I
fishy.
could foresee some issues there with that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm willing to see it play out because it, you know, not
Yeah.
living in New York, it doesn't really affect me. It's a
Right.
purely academic sort of set of observations.
Well,
Yeah.
because I discussed this with John, and I says, what's going to happen is they're going to put all the small stores out, which are owned by legal immigrants, most of these bodegas. So you can't go down to the corner and get your milk. So it's going to be one store in each of the 5 boroughs. So if you're on one end of the borough and the store's all the way on the other side, you're going to spend half your day just trying to go back and forth. And he was advertising it, and I saw the advertisement he had where he did his public announcement and bragging that everything's going to be 30% off. Well, fine. How much of a markup are you going to put on the item prior to going on the shelf? Then you knock the 30% off. It's not going to be a penny saved anywhere. So between the time you're going to lose going just to the one store, if it's open, to get an item that you could have walked down to the corner bodega and paid the same price or less for.
It's all about control.
And on top of which, it's built with their own tax dollars. So they're paying taxes to build a store that they have to go in and buy items from.
Yep. See how far they can push.
Yeah, like I said, it's going to be an interesting sort of academic exercise for, at least for us watching from outside of New York. It's going to be just a pure economic theory for us to watch it play out.
It's very North Korea. I mean, these government grocery stores. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, I actually, I'd have to brush up on exactly what the model is again to make an educated sort of a more educated set of comments about what that is all about. But yeah, I'm sorry. I think we digressed from Cuba. In terms of those sanctions, I mean, what you're saying is that they're sanctioning the people that have done sanctions evasion. So they did the first layer of sanctions, and I mean the Cubans are trying to reroute their economy. They're trying to survive. They are trying to adjust to the new realities, which are that we are applying more and more sanctions by the week. It seems like we've had 2 or 3 rounds of announcements just in the past couple months. And it does feel like the overall trend that we're looking at is an increasing pressure campaign against Havana. I don't know if that translates into military action, although Trump has put it out there. I mean, he mentioned it, I think, back in March, like, in the context of him talking about Iran, Iran's going great. Cuba's next. Was his comment. That's a very rough paraphrase, but I mean, that's a pretty loaded statement. Leaves a lot of room for interpretation of, what are the options on the table, and what are you guys looking to do against Cuba?
Yeah,
we'll see.
Well, Ryan, we're down to our last minute here, and it's always a blast to have you on. You never know what's going to come out of my mouth.
I'm surprised by the things that have come out of my mouth, so we're all just in the same boat, I guess.
No, you're always very informative, very sharp.
But people can find you at the epochtimes.com. You do the foreign as well as the military coverage on the Epoch Times, even though I say epic. I use the American pronunciation. But it's always a pleasure. We love having you on.
Thank you for having me on.
All right. God bless. You take care now. Enjoy your weekend. All right.
You too.
And oops, there we go. I can't even hit the right button.
We're all over the place today.
I know, we're all over the place. We will be back next week. I'm looking to see. Yeah. A friend of mine, John Bebbington, he's been on once before, has a book that came out this past year, and we're going to be talking to him about it. It happens to deal with a fort here in South Carolina called Fort Fremont.
Oh, okay.
he fictionalized the characters. It was open until I think just past the Spanish Civil War. Spanish
Where's the fort?
American War.
What town is the fort in?
It's in an area they call St. Helena.
Okay.
It's in,
Okay.
yes,
Well, this will be fun, and I'll come on at the right time. I won't be 10 minutes late next week. I promise.
Well, Hannah, you enjoy your weekend. And
Okay.
everyone, thank you for joining us. So we will be back, same bad time, same bad station. If I can hit the right buttons again, here we go.